Pressing is a huge part of today's game, and to support a team's press, they might look to use pressing traps. A team might choose to use pressing traps when pressing from within their high block or from within their mid block, and that's what we're going to take a look at in today's video. As always, I will leave timestamps and chapters below. I'm Coach Reese. Let's go over to the tactics board. What is a pressing trap? Well, a pressing trap is a pre-planned approach by a team to force the opposition to complete a specific action. When thinking about pressing traps, we've got two options. We can force the opposition into a specific location on the pitch, that should the opposition play into this area, it increases our chances of winning the ball back. Or we can look to force the opposition into a specific player. As you'll see as we take a look at pressing traps further on within the video, there's a lot of overlap between targeting an area and targeting a player. The first option that we have is to target the fullback, and this is probably the most common pressing trap used. And the reason for this is a player receiving up against the touchline, as opposed to a player who's receiving the ball within the centre of the pitch, has their options limited by the touchline. So a player receiving up against the touchline can only play forwards, backwards, or infield. And because of this, from a pressing point of view, it can be a lot easier for the team to restrict the remaining passing options and hopefully regain the ball in advanced areas. When targeting the fullback, there's a few things that we need to consider. The first one is what we're going to call our primary contact. And our primary contact is the player who engages the fullback. In this case, it's our winger, and they need to engage the fullback as the ball is arriving at the fullback. This gives the winger the opportunity to press on the fullback's first touch. They might also look to curve their run to potentially block any passes up the line. This can restrict one of those three passing options that we previously talked about. The supporting players, so this might be our striker, should look to restrict the pass backwards into the centre back. The midfield unit should look to block any potential passes that the fullback might look to play into midfield. An effective use of their cover shadows to block those passing lanes is really important. Although our primary contact, so our winger, has curved their run to block that pass up the field, our fullback on that side can look to engage the opposition winger. They might choose to stand behind them and just discourage that pass, or they might look to stand in front and block that passing lane. If that's going to happen, our defensive unit needs to shift across and just make sure that we cover that, because once our fullback stands in front, the pass in behind and over the top might be able to be accessed by the opposition fullback. The next pressing trap that we can look to use is we can look to target central areas, or in this case to target the pivot. When looking to release a pressing trap within central areas, it's a little bit more complex than that if we were to target the fullback. And this is because a player, in this case the opposition's pivot receiving in central areas, can play in multiple directions should they receive the ball. In order to encourage the opposition to play into central areas, we might look to keep our wingers slightly wider, and this just opens up that passing lane for the opposition centre back into the opposition pivot. Once we've encouraged that pass into the pivot, it's really important that our striker blocks the return pass back to the centre back. As this is happening, our midfield unit and potentially other supporting players need to look to swarm the pivot in order to remove the passing lanes and passing options that the pivot will have available. Targeting the pivot is a lot more risky just because of the amount of passing options that will need to be blocked in order to potentially win the ball. So it's incredibly important that pressing players who are engaging the pivot are arriving on the pivot's first touch. So that's a quick look at pressing traps and what our options are when we're trying to use them. As always, I do hope you found the video useful. If you did, I do have a Ko-fi page if you'd like to support myself and the channel, along with a match analysis template that's available through my Gumroad page. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I've been Coach Reese. Have a great day.